This is the story of Charles Caldwell, a man born in chains who rose to challenge the masters of Mississippi. In the 1830s, a young Charles learned the blacksmith's trade under the blistering sun of Hinds County. Hammer in hand, he forged iron with skill and strength and began to forge his own destiny. Enslaved though he was, his talent won him respect, uncommon for a black man in bondage. Neighbors in the little town of Clinton knew the ring of Caldwell's hammer, each strike a prayer for freedom. When emancipation came with the Civil War's end, Caldwell stood upright, scarred but unbowed, ready to lead his people into a new day. With shackles cast off, Charles Caldwell emerged as a natural leader in the era of Reconstruction. In 1868, the winds of change swept through Mississippi, calling a convention to write a new constitution. Caldwell stepped forward, one of 16 black delegates amid the hall of white faces, to help draft the laws of a freer future. Though formerly unschooled, he carried wisdom in his bones and the fire of justice in his heart. He spoke plainly, a blacksmith's cadence ringing true, and the other delegates listened. That year, he also won election to the state senate, among the first black men ever to claim such power in Mississippi. But fate tested this rising star. One day, a white man, son of a prominent judge, attacked Caldwell in Jackson. Charles fired back in self-defense, and the white assailant fell dead. In a Mississippi courtroom, an all-white jury sat in judgment of a black man who dared spill white blood, and they acquitted him. For the first time anyone could recall, white jurors agreed a black man's life was worth defending. This verdict shocked the land. Some said it was a Christmas miracle come early. Others cursed Caldwell's name, calling for vengeance. Yet there he stood, vindicated and unafraid, a black senator who had faced down his would-be killers and the courts alike. His legend grew part folk hero, part demon in the eyes of those who clung to the old order, as the 1870s war on the glow of freedom's promise met the gathering storm of hate. By 1875, Mississippi's nights were lit by burning crosses and muzzle flash. White supremacist militias roamed rifle clubs, and Klansmen determined to snuff out black political power. The Democratic Party in the state, thirsting to regain control, openly colluded with these white night riders. They bullied black voters, stuffed ballot boxes, and left blood wherever they passed. Senator Charles Caldwell watched this terror with a heavy heart but a steady gaze. He had always preached peace between the races when he could, but he refused to see his people hunted without answer. When clashes broke out that September at a political rally in Clinton, what history would call the Clinton riot, Caldwell was there trying to keep the peace. What began as a hopeful multiracial gathering erupted into gunfire and chaos as white agitators stoked violence. Families fled into the woods as bullets flew. Caldwell helped innocent souls escape and boldly confronted the rioters, standing as a shield between madness and the vulnerable. News of the riot reached Governor Adelbert Ames, who then appointed Caldwell a colonel and tasked him with organizing black militiamen to defend their communities. For a brief moment, armed black men under Caldwell's command marched through Hinds County, heads high, resolved to protect their homes and votes. But this show of black resolve only made the white militias more furious. White politicians screamed that Caldwell's militia was a threat, and under intense Democratic pressure, the governor disbanded the black militia before the crucial November election. Federal officials in Washington, eyes drifting away from Reconstruction, refused to intervene. No cavalry of U.S. troops came to the aid of Mississippi's freedmen that fall. The stage was set for the Democrats to reclaim power by violence and fraud. Through it all, Caldwell persisted, courage in his voice, even as hope withered. He urged black voters to stand firm, to go to the polls despite the danger. He walked openly in Clinton, a marked man, a walking target, friends warned, but Caldwell would not hide. I have survived worse, he told those who feared for him, remembering the war he had fought with faith and won. Still, whispers carried on the breeze that Charles Caldwell's days were numbered. His boldness had painted a bullseye on his back. The white bosses of Clinton plotted in shadow, sharpening their knives for the proud black senator. And so, it came to the chill of Christmas Day, 1875. On a day meant for peace, the town of Clinton crackled with tension. That morning, Caldwell heard that his nephew, David Washington, had been threatened. Determined to ensure his kin's safety, Caldwell rode into Clinton under the winter sun. The streets were oddly quiet, resentful eyes watching from behind curtains as the black statesman passed. Satisfied that David was safe for the moment, Caldwell returned home to share Christmas dinner with his family, perhaps hoping the holiday would pass without incident. But as dusk fell, an acquaintance came calling. William Buck Cabell, a white man Caldwell had long considered a friend despite the color line. With a cordial smile, Buck invited Caldwell back into town, saying, "Come, Charles, let us toast Christmas together like old times." Perhaps Caldwell hesitated. Perhaps a voice of warning whispered in his soul, but trust and a generous heart won out. After all, he knew Buck as a friendly face in Clinton's white community. So, Charles Caldwell, who had stared down open threats, walked willingly into a trap, wrought by a smiling friend. Night had settled when Caldwell and Buck Cabell arrived at Chilton's General Store, where festive oil lamps flickered in the window. Cabell led Caldwell down into the store's dark cellar, where a bottle and 2 glasses awaited on a rough wooden table. The air was damp and still. The 2 men raised their cups in a Christmas toast. In that brief moment, perhaps Caldwell allowed himself a hopeful thought that even across the racial divide, 2 old neighbors could share holiday cheer. But as their glasses clinked, that sound became a signal. A flash burst from the cellar window. Gunshot. Caldwell jolted as a bullet tore into him from behind. He crumpled to the floor, glass shattering, wine and blood mixing on the dirt floor. Buck Cabell had vanished into the shadows. The assassins, hidden outside, now crept in to finish their work. Charles Caldwell, the indomitable, clung to life with iron will. He pushed himself up against the wall, refusing to die on his belly. Though mortally wounded, he straightened his coat, lifted his chin, and faced his killers. White faces glared back at him in the gloom. Some of the very town leaders who had smiled to his face in daylight. Caldwell's voice rang out, clear and fearless. Each word weighted like iron. "Remember, when you kill me, you kill a gentleman and a brave man. Never say you killed a coward. Remember it when I am gone." His final declaration hung in the air, defiant and true. For a heartbeat, even the murderers stood silent, eye to eye with the dignity of their intended victim. Then came the thunder. Gunfire erupted. Dozens of shots, their muzzles sparking like hellfire in the dark. 40 bullets or more ripped into Charles Caldwell's proud body. Only when he lay utterly still did the guns go quiet. On that Christmas night in Clinton, Mississippi, a great oak was felled. The assassins dragged themselves up into the night and faded away, as if they were only phantoms. In the cellar, Charles Caldwell's blood pooled on the cold ground, a martyr's crimson crown on the earth he had fought to free. They buried Charles Caldwell soon after, mourned by his wife Margaret and all who had looked to him for protection. Grief and fear flooded the black community. If even Caldwell, the fearless, could be cut down in cold blood, what hope remained? In Jackson and Washington, there was barely a murmur over the murder of a state senator. The white authorities claimed to investigate, but unsurprisingly, no one was ever charged. The affair is shrouded in mystery. White officials shrugged and the killers walked free. Caldwell's assassination was the final nail in Mississippi's Reconstruction coffin. The year of 1875 ended with black voters disenfranchised and white supremacists exultant. The fall of Reconstruction spread like a funeral pall. In the new year, the Redeemers took power, closing the door on interracial democracy for nearly a century. Caldwell's death heralded the rise of white terror in Mississippi, a long, dark era where lynch mobs and Jim Crow laws reigned, where black voices were silenced under the boot heel of segregation. A long shadow fell across Mississippi that Christmas, a shadow of injustice and broken promises that would stretch over generations. Yet, even in that darkness, the memory of Charles Caldwell did not die. Like an ember buried in ash, his story smoldered in the hearts of those who had witnessed his courage. In whispers and mournful songs, they recalled the black blacksmith who became a senator, the man who had dueled with death and spoke proudly even in his final breath. There is a commemorative plaque in Clinton, Mississippi as a remembrance of this tumultuous time in American history. We must never forget. Please share, like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. I'm G. Lewis, and this is The Sip. Until next time, take care of yourself and fam. Always take care of your people. God bless.